everybody. Welcome to Behind the Mask. This is the very first episode of the official after-show talk show of the AO original series, The Jig Is Up. I am Tyler Franks, aka Tristan Gretzinger. We also have Pamela Patterson herself, Hannah Hunt.
Hello.
The one and only Barney O'Rourke, Julian Oliver.
Hello.
And we are your hosts for the next 30 minutes, but also the team of writers that wrote the Jig Is Up series. And so we are going to be breaking down each episode after they air every week, bringing on some key characters from each episode and asking them about their experience, picking their brain about their character and their story so far. And on this first episode, we kind of just want to tell you guys about how this whole idea came to be, right?
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
So let me think. I've got to go back in time now. I think it was in 2022 that we started thinking about doing something.
The idea kind of arose at that point.
Yeah. We knew that we wanted to do our first scripted series here at Alpha Omega Broadcasting. And I kind of was into murder mysteries a little bit. So I was like, okay. And I started kicking around some ideas. If I'm being 100% honest, I don't remember a lot about how a lot of the characters individually were born. I know that I started to have early conversations with you, Julian. You can tell me what you remember.
I remember that it started out with the first couple characters, Barney, who I play, being one of those.
Okay.
But even you and I talked about, we didn't initially even think of me being Barney at that time.
Yeah.
We were kind of just like, let's create this like character. He can kind of lead this first episode and see where it goes. And then from there, I think, as we started thinking of a lot of our volunteer actors, we, I think, got inspired by a lot of their personal
personalities,
characteristics. And that helped at least some.
I think it
of
guided
our
like
characters.
who the characters were, because we wanted to give people characters we thought they really could embody.
Oh, definitely.
I know that I had been working at Alpha Omega Broadcasting and doing more talk show type things like this. That was more my vibe. And you have a degree in film, but neither of us were, well, you're more of a writer than me. But I did not want to write. And so I thought, I know, my friend Hannah loves to write. So I called you, Hannah, so you can tell me about what you remember.
We met up, and I think you had already kind of developed some of the characters. So we met up, and you kind of gave me this idea, told me a little bit of, you know, shows that you were watching that were inspiring you, movies that you had seen, all kinds of things. And some I had seen, some I had not. And so I was just picking your brain.
You took a lot of notes that day.
Yes.
Yeah.
I still have that notebook and all those,
all the
pages.
scribbles.
Yes. Because I wrote down all of the people. You already had names for almost all the characters, and had an idea of maybe who could play them, but at the very least, their characteristics that would define them throughout the show.
Right.
And we talked about things like the power dynamic that we wanted to show between different media outlets. We see that in this first episode right away with KWN and the Daily Squire, and their kind of fight for who gets the story first, who does it better, who do people listen to.
There's politicians saying a lot. There's podcasters saying a lot.
Yep.
Yeah, it's very crowded. The voices are very crowded.
Yes, and we kind of wanted to reflect our own world of, you know, like, what are you listening to, and bring people's awareness to that in a very comedic kind of murder mystery silly way. We wanted to just kind of bring that theme to be careful what you listen to, because you don't know what's happening behind the scenes, what people might be corrupted, what people might have a hidden agenda, and we kind of get into that throughout the show.
We even established the message behind the show pretty early on as well. Like, what is it that we want to portray to our audiences? And in a nutshell, it was a murder mystery with a message. Is a great way to explain it. Because we want to just really break down, okay, all of these characters aren't just here. There's a reason they're here. And it's for a bigger and more awesome outcome.
When it actually got down to writing, I guess I bit the bullet and said, okay, I'll write episode 1. Which I did not want to do. It just did not seem exciting to me to go line by line and word by word and write for every character. I felt like, oh my goodness, I don't want to do that. But I did it to help set the tone, to kind of show you guys what I want.
Right, and that's what I remembered you saying. I'm going to take point because I want you to know this is exactly how I want this character. This is how I want. And it was great as a stepping stone throughout the process to be able to fall back on that. Like, we had tons of discussions. How does Dahlia act? What are Leon's motivations? You know, all of this before. And then with your first episode, you're like, okay, here's their personalities on paper.
Yeah,
and
I really
that
wanted
was super helpful.
Thank you. I really wanted to establish, I think, like a North Star that we would all kind of be able to say, okay, I know where we're headed if we lose the plot. You both were very instrumental in helping me kind of bring the vision I had to life. Because Julian, you probably have the most quirky and funny ideas. I think Hannah would agree. Sometimes it was hard for us to be like, how are we going to do what Julian wants to do?
But it was a great balance because although I had a lot of quirky comedic moments, because even Hannah and I would be interacting and she'd say, I'm not a comedian and I don't have a funny bone in my body, but you have the emotion and you have the captivation. So I think altogether we were able to come together and bring our ideas to this middle.
And it was amazing. It was stimulating too. Like, you guys would throw out ideas. And then thinking, okay, I don't know how that will work, and kind of brush it off, but how can I make that work?
Yeah.
How can we reach the tendrils of this story to support that idea?
Oh, yeah. And that's the other thing that I think was a great safe space for our writing, is because we never said an idea was bad or not good. We always looked at all the ways we could make it possible.
Yeah. At least writing it down and saying, we'll revisit that at
Let's
some point.
think about
And we didn't keep all of them.
But
we did always give thought to it, like you're saying.
Yeah.
No one just dismissed each other's ideas like, no, we're not going to do that.
Yeah.
I know there were some, I'll say, disagreements,
Yeah.
especially in the beginning. And we, I think, grew as a team and figured out how each other worked. But in the very beginning, I know that it was, there were some times where it was like, I don't know how to make that work.
Well, yeah, I mean, a lot of things, I think, in learning how each other worked caused a little bit of that, and there were growing pains to figure out, okay, we need to be able to communicate with each other like this, so that that person has what they need to do their section. Like Hannah, you're very detail oriented, and that's something that Julian and I
Extremely,
aren't.
yes.
But I still remember a conversation that we were having, and it was in those moments where we're like, you're stressing me out, I don't have the details. And you're like, the story, like especially a mystery, is born in the details.
Yes.
And so then I really had to be like, okay, I know the details bore me, but she's right. And you really helped us be like, that's hilarious, that's a gag, I love it, but how are we gonna get there really?
Right.
And so I think there was a really cool balance, especially because early on I told you, I said, I know who the killer is right off the bat. And I know how it ends, but I don't know how to get there. Here's A and here's B, but I don't know how we're getting in there in the middle.
And we had so many characters. That was something that was, I think, a huge undertaking, especially for a first project.
Yeah.
It wasn't just like one person was the main character. We focused on Barney at first, but we branched out pretty quickly to everybody's kind of side stories and backstories and motivations, and then had to wrap them all up.
Yeah.
And so it was a big task.
Yeah, so I mean, just to kind of speak a little bit to the timeline, we probably started writing, oh man, it was tough. I can't remember exactly the timeline, but we started production early, and we weren't finished with script.
No,
and
I think we were on, when we started filming, were we already writing
It was
episode
summer of
4?
22, and we were in our 4th episode that we were writing. So we were writing and shooting at the same time for at least 10 months.
Right.
Actors were receiving scripts coming in for table reads, but also...
Right. And editing. Because we were editing episode 3 together and giving all our feedback and changing things. Reading episode 2, shooting episode 1, writing episode 4.
I don't know how he gets it all
as
straight.
we go.
Yeah.
Well, and Julian, you live in California, so you were flying down. So there were weeks whenever I was like, hey guys, Julian will be here for 4 days. We need to shoot a ton of stuff.
In this order and in this way.
Yeah.
And I think that, especially in this episode of Behind the Mask, we're going to get to see and interview a lot of our characters who have maybe had similar sort of interactions. So I think we're going to be interviewing with Leon deGrasse Mayfield here in a second, played by Moises Ancira. So
Yep, let's take a look at one of the highlights from our very first episode, and we'll be right back.
Episode 1 of The Jig Is Up has the most iconic screams of the season. We are going to show you all scream outtakes, and we want you to choose your favorite. Let us know on our socials who has the best one.
Awesome, and we are back with our very first guest here on Behind the Mask. We have Moises Ancira, who plays Leon deGrasse Mayfield. Whoo, that's a mouthful. What? Yeah, we said the same time. That is.
I always got mixed up sometimes when
I know.
would talk to people. Who are you? Leon deGrasse Mayfield. Yeah.
What kind of is that? Like, what kind of name is that? Like, what would be his heritage?
Fancy name.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know either.
Leon.
well, speaking of all the names that Leon has this
no.
season,
He's been called a lot of
he's been
names.
called a lot, especially by Barney. He calls him what? Colonel Mustard,
Mustard,
the
Monopoly
Monopoly
Man,
Man.
Mr. Peanut.
Mr. Peanut.
Oh my God.
He gets that too.
Yes.
Here.
Yeah,
I was
so-
called a lot of different names. I don't know why.
Well,
The old guy. Where's the old guy? I heard that a
No,
couple
it's
of
because
times.
you were very well dressed.
You know, you have to
That's
have
true.
the yeah.
That's true.
I'd love to start us off with the first question.
Please.
So,
What is the question?
so,
Shoot.
so Moises, your character Leon actually interacts quite heavily with Barney at the early part of this episode, and so, with him being one of the members auctioning for the Bible, Barney has an interaction with him before, where he accuses Leon of being a murderer, and he doesn't really like him from the start. And so I just wanted to ask you, like, how did it feel in those moments we shot together with our characters being accused so early on?
Some pretty intense scenes.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, because I think the whole town thought of me as a murderer because of what happened with Harrison, and me being the last one seeing Harrison alive. So they would put two and two together. So you know what? He must have had something to do with that because he's the last person that saw him alive. But you know, the police did their investigations, and I was found to be innocent. And that's what I told Barney. I
Right.
said, "Hey, Barney, the police found it." And then all of a sudden, when it comes out, you know, Harrison, you know, he was a con artist already,
Yeah.
and everything that he sold me was fake. So
Which is why he needs a real piece of history.
exactly, that's why he was there to get that
Yep.
Bible to help his museum, because that was his goal, always to keep the museum and keep that business running.
That's true. Well, I've got to say, in this episode, you do look particularly suspicious, especially because we do get to have a flashback moment. And we see that interaction that Leon does have with Harrison Bismarck. Now, even before Harrison tells Leon, hey, I'm taking your job from you, Leon seems to already be kind of like over this Harrison guy, annoyed with him. Why do you think from the start Leon was so defensive or just disliked Harrison so much?
Almost like this young guy's coming in and, you know, wanting to take his position. And he was already defensive already because he said, you know what, I've never had anybody complain on me. Nobody's has said anything about me or anything other than, And then here comes this guy and say, you know what? Yeah, you're nothing. You know what? Your owners are gonna, give me your job. And I said, okay. And then he said, but I'll sell you a piece of my art for you. I said, okay. Well, then let's see. But it was almost like this young kid just trying to come in and muscle his way in and take my position as the museum curator, which he didn't want to.
Right. Kind of take what you felt was yours.
Yeah, that's my life's work as far as
Exactly.
being the museum person.
Exactly.
And so he didn't really like that. And then being Barney coming in and saying, I had a whole paper written about you with it. You're the murderer. You're suspected.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
that didn't even
And he
help
says,
either,
I think you did it because you're the only one who could have access to the museum.
Right. And do you, I know you've only played for one episode at this point, Leon, do you feel like he is used to that kind of thing and lets it kind of slide off his back? Because he's surrounded by the scandal. Everybody thinks he did it. Or do you feel like he takes it personally from each person that says something to him?
I think he takes it personally from each person because he sees what everybody's thinking about him, whether it's good or whether it's bad. And then he's, okay, well then I don't really like this person because he's already against me already. But, I like this person because he hasn't said anything about it.
Right.
Yeah. But then that's how, Carlotta, that's how he met her at the church. And she goes, well, who's this guy? And I said, well, who's this girl? And that's how that little relationship started.
Right.
Because,
A little sneak
she
peek
didn't
into
think of
the
him as a suspect.
next
you know what I mean?
episode, right,
So,
right.
and that's why, I think that's why they connected, because she didn't think of him as, a killer. Maybe she had ulterior motives.
Right.
Thinking, hey, maybe I can get with this guy.
An initial attraction.
or
Or
like
at
a-
least somebody who's willing to say, let me get to know you for myself.
Exactly.
And not just go off of what I've
Yeah.
heard, all the terrible things I've heard.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Leon is suspicious again later in the episode, to me, because when all of us bidders are finally brought into the church, those of us who were selected for the live auction, right before it's about to begin, Leon says, wait a minute, can we have a bathroom break? Well, during that bathroom break, where we all have to be separated and can't talk to one another and don't know where anybody is in the building, is when Ralph is killed. So to me, I feel like, I don't know, is Leon trying to maybe make up an excuse to get everybody separate and maybe
Steal the Bible.
Yeah,
Murder
I don't
again.
know. I mean, he's
maybe.
murdered. Supposedly, the first time he murdered someone and took their prized possession. Could he be doing this again? What do you think? Do you think Leon is really that conniving, or do you think he simply just needed the bathroom?
He just needed to use the restroom. He'd been holding it all day outside.
right?
He's like, could I just get
This
5
is
minutes?
true.
I need to go to the restroom. That's all.
yeah.
Come on. Because he wanted to buy that Bible. Because, he was one of the guys that had money, because him, Tristan, and I think Gigi,
Blaine.
Blaine.
yeah.
They had money. So
Yep.
then he had money. So you know what? If I can outbid these people, then I can get that Bible for myself.
Yep.
So I think his intention was going to that auction, bidding for that Bible and winning that Bible, because he told you that. He goes, once I
did.
get that Bible, take
Make
a
sure to
picture
get
of
my
my
good
good side,
side.
because put that in your school paper. So
Yeah. So what do you think Leon's driving force is? Is it really just to kick off the museum again, or is it almost like a social thing for him? Like, is he the type, do you view him as the type to like really want to flaunt who he is as a person?
I don't think so. I think he just wanted to have something, a prized possession for the museum.
Yep.
Because remember, I think, I don't know, let's see, I think later on some stuff happens, but he had a possession of that Bible,
Yeah.
and then he let it go. And that's when the church got it. So that's when they find out, what.
This
that's
is a
when he's
backstory we haven't heard yet.
Yeah.
But no, it's true. And maybe even if Leon is motivated to get the Bible because he thinks, well, if I could be the guy that gets something as famous as the Gutenberg Bible for the museum, might I be known for that now instead of
Other scandals.
Of the scandal,
Make a
Harrison
name for
Bismarck. Yeah, because whatever he was trying to buy from Harrison was all fakes. So he couldn't do anything with that.
Right.
So
Bring him in.
now
It
that
didn't
I
help
guess
him
if he
at
can
all.
buy this Bible, it would be something that he can say, you know what, I've got something that, this town that puts me on the map, and they don't have
and
to worry
shows
about
that I
that.
still got it, especially if he feels
Exactly.
like, am I maybe I am, if everybody does see me as like the old guy, Mr. Peanut, and now there's people vying for my job, he's like, no, maybe I can show people that I do still got it. I can get this Bible, and then, hey, they can kick rocks, right? Could be a motivator for him, you know? Well, I think it'd be really awesome if we check out one of those scenes of yours from episode 1. We'll do that, and then we have more to talk about when we come back.
So, what about you? Are you here to outbid me for the goods, or are you here to slander my good name?
Oh no, I could never afford anything here. I'm just here to cover for the paper. But I still don't get why people want to auction off some old church stuff anyway.
Of course you don't know. Figures a child like you would be so ignorant. Today's featured item is an ultra rare, perfectly preserved Gutenberg Bible. A discovery this phenomenal is absolutely unheard of.
Wait, a Gutenberg Bible? Like something that would actually be made on a Gutenberg printing press?
Precisely. And when this auction is over, and I'm presented with that Bible, be sure to get my good side for your school newspaper.
Nice. It's always cool to kind of revisit some of those scenes. I wanted to tell you guys, Mo has a really great story he wants to say, but it's a mild spoiler for episode 2. So if you guys don't want that, maybe fast forward like a minute. But you've been warned. Okay, Mo, tell us.
Well, it's because, you know, him and Carlota have trying to start something, and then they leave the church together, and they're in the car. She has them in the car, and they're talking, and I think they go get a milkshake or something. And then they come back, and they're talking in the car, and they're saying, we're going to do, how do you know me, blah, blah. And then, you know, at the end of the scene, I'm supposed to kiss her. And I don't know, on the cheek, or I don't know how. So then I don't know how many takes we took of this. And this was late at night. It was almost like 1 o'clock in the morning. And it's like, we're in the car, and then I go in for the kiss. I'll pucker it up, and she goes, no, don't do that. I think of you as my big brother. Don't do that. And I said, okay, just calm down. Okay, don't even think about it. Let's do it again. So I go in for another time. And she goes, no. So finally, I said, okay, well, then I'll just kiss your hand. So that's why I grab her hand, and I kiss her hand, because she said, you're not going to kiss me. I said, oh, great.
That's pretty funny. You know, sometimes you got to make a change on the fly, you know?
Yep.
Yeah.
And you guys will meet Carlotta, or Cindy Rosado, who plays this character in episode 2. That's pretty funny. That's pretty good.
Yeah. So I had one more question for you as Leon. So you haven't done much as him so far in episode 1, but do you think, especially with the scandal and everything with your backstory, I guess how far do you think Leon would go to protect the life that he is living currently as the museum curator?
I think he would do whatever needed to be done. You know,
Yep.
as far as, I don't know whether he would kill somebody, but he would go
As far
and
as he
do
needed to.
whatever he needed to do to keep his reputation intact and to save himself.
Right.
Yeah, so I would think he would do whatever.
Very suspicious.
Raises
I
some
know.
eyebrows.
It does. Another thing I wanted to ask you about, and this kind of transitions us into what we want to continue to talk about on the third segment of each episode of Behind the Mask, is a little bit about the production process and taking our ideas that have been now written into script and fully formulating them into what you guys have seen on screen. Well, Mo, you were not only an actor in this, but you were also a member of the crew. So on days, many times that you were not in front of the camera, you were behind the camera. So tell us what it was like to go into a production of this size where you're acting and you're on crew as well.
It was hard because you have to learn the lines whenever it was your scene, and then when it wasn't your scene, then you'd have to be with the crew. And I was more audio on the audio side, so then I was there with the boom, you know, in all different kind of positions inside the car, or wherever with the boom, or with lapels or whatever. If they needed me to run a camera or whatever, then I would do that too. So I was part of the whole thing, and not just certain scenes.
Yeah.
So I was in the midst of everything, and it was kind of hard because they would say, well then, let's give this day off, or let's give that, and that, well, I'm here all the time.
I know.
I gotta act, and I've gotta be on the crew
We'd
too.
be getting crew together, and I'd be like, oh, he can't crew that day because he's on camera. Sorry.
So,
Yeah.
but I was in the
Dual
midst of
roles.
everything.
Yeah,
so
super
Yeah.
worlds.
yeah, so
Well, you know, we really did have a skeleton crew on this production. It was probably no larger than 5 people who were like all together. and we never had them all on at once. We tried to give people some time away, and so it was kind of like teams of two almost, which that's a lot of work behind the scenes for just two people.
Right.
Especially then if you're also acting. So hats off to you. Hey, and Leon wears a great hat in episode 1 as well, so that's really
Yes,
cool.
he does.
We never had any issues
very
with outfits
well-dressed.
because, you know, all you would say, hey, look, I need you to do this, that. Okay, well, then I'll go home to my closet.
Yeah.
Like, here's the suit here. Here's the suit here.
You were good
Here's a suit
on
here, so,
costuming. It was
yeah.
easy because you had a lot of your own clothes.
Right.
My mom, who plays Mrs. McCaw, Ruth, she had a lot of her own clothes. There were people who did, and other people it was hard to find stuff for. But I mean, Julian and Hannah, you guys too. What was it like in the beginning, as writers, being so involved in the creation of it, to then put on a costume and go, oh wait, now I'm memorizing the lines and like I'm going for the camera.
I'm in this.
Yeah.
Right.
What was that like for you guys?
You go ahead, Julie.
So for me personally, I feel like you get so inspired with just writing it. And you can picture it in your head and you're like, I wonder what it's gonna look like when it's all done. And so going from that sort of mentality to actually putting on Barney's first costume, the glasses, and filming my first scene.
And shaving.
And shaving.
Because you always have a
Which
facial
was
hair.
my least favorite part of filming because it makes me
We
feel
made
so
you
weird.
look younger.
It's like I'm naked. But all that to say, I found it super exciting to be able to like literally envision
Yeah.
what we've been writing for so long. And so it's inspiring and it's exciting because I think we have a great show here.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was very interesting for me. My background in writing is more of novel writing, and this was a transition to screenwriting, which is very different. You show a lot rather than there's
Then
no
tell a
room
lot,
for
maybe.
exposition.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so and sometimes the dialogue I would write almost as if I was writing in a novel. Even dialogue in a novel comes off the page differently than screenwriting dialogue. And so from writing to then reading the lines aloud, there was still even more of a transition of, oh, people talk a little bit different than they write.
Yeah.
And so when we were writing and talking about all the characters, you kind of see this big vision. And then as Pamela, I've just only got, this one little slice of this entire pie. That as Pamela, I only know certain things. I only want certain things. And it's not the same as the things that I was putting into as the writer.
Right, yeah.
And so it was an interesting transition, but I really enjoyed it. I
Yeah.
really enjoyed that, just the acting, but having to take a step back and kind of narrow my focus for that.
I really want to brag on all of our actors because everybody did this on a volunteer basis. It was incredible because nobody was a paid actor. We are not professional actors. I don't know if it's points you can tell, but everybody really just gave of themselves for this, and that's incredible.
A true blessing.
It really is, because we would do it on their timetable. So people, of course, work and have other commitments in life, and so we would say, okay, most of the time that means nights and weekends, but then that means that our crew, even staffed people who we have at Alpha Mega Broadcasting, are then reshaping their normal schedules to accommodate the free time of the actors. So it really all across the board, cast and crew. I just want to say thank you to all of you guys because we could not have done this if everybody
It was
didn't
hard at the
make time.
beginning, but then after you start shooting, then it just you take that character upon yourself,
Yeah.
and then you become that character. So
Yeah,
it's not
take
as hard.
ownership of it.
It's not as hard to play Leon later on
Yeah.
as it
Right.
was at the beginning, because at
Yes.
the beginning you're just barely learning who Leon is and trying to figure out, okay, what is he thinking, or what does he want to do here, or what. But then later on you already know, okay, that's what he was trying to do, and that's where he's going. So
Right.
and
His
it's easier.
motivations
Yeah,
and
it's
everything.
easier later on. But so
I'd also like to say, Tyler, that I think you did a phenomenal job. You had many hats because you were the genesis of the idea. You brought it up to both of us. We all helped write, but you kind of took the main point, especially for the beginning episodes, because you had the vision and you knew the characters. And then on top of that, you were acting in it and directing.
Whew.
So, and you were coordinating all of everybody's volunteer schedules.
Schedule,
So
costumes.
you, I think
Forgot about that
God
part.
did a work in you,
Thank
and I
you.
think it was amazing.
Hey, I joke with people, I'm like, there's not a day that passes that I do not work on this show, even as we film it now, and have not been in production for, like, even just doing this, like, and the show hasn't even released at this time of filming this right now.
Uh-huh.
And I'm like, I work on this every day. But I love
Yep.
it, and I'm so blessed, and so I want to thank all of you guys, I want to thank our cast and crew again. And we're excited to just show you guys more and more of this and break it down week after week. It has been fun, you guys, right? This is going to be fun. 10 weeks of Behind the Mask, breaking it down. I want to thank you guys all again for subscribing to AO Family and Classics, the #1 spot, the only spot where you can find all of our original content here at Alpha Mega Broadcasting. Don't forget to watch The Jig Is Up, new episodes every Saturday, and we will be here on AO Family and Classics to break it down with you, with guests each week, and the insider look at how it was made, baby. All right, you guys, be blessed, and we'll see you next time.